Shalom, shalom, Israel. Welcome again to Watchmen of the Faith Ministry. I'm going to continue where I left off at. Okay, we at Yochanan, chapter 4, verse 20. All right, I'm just going to go straight into it. Our fathers, which is what this Samaritan woman is saying, our fathers worship in this mountain. What mountain is this woman referring to? She's talking about Mount Gerizim. All right, it's very important that we understand that. It's talking about Mount Gerizim. So she's disputing now with the Father. Okay, with the Messiah, because she's now trying to explain to the Messiah where the right place to worship is at. She's telling the Father, the Messiah, listen, we worship at Mount Gerizim, and you say, the Messiah, and you say that in Jerusalem is a place where men ought to worship? Of course, Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship, because it tells us that in Deuteronomy 16:16, that 3 times a year, all males must report to Jerusalem. Again, let's back everything up so everything can be proven throughout the scripture. So this will help us to understand the beef between northern and southern kingdom. And one of the beefs was that where to worship at. Okay, this caused a division, a hatred between northern and southern kingdom. And again, like I said, this hatred began in Genesis, where the brothers sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites, and the Ishmaelites sold him to the Egyptians, because northern kingdom also goes by the name of the house of Joseph. Joseph is representing Ephraim. So this beef between the brothers happened all the way back during the time of Genesis. Now, Deuteronomy 16:16. Let's prove now that is this place where the Messiah placed his name at was Jerusalem. And that's Deuteronomy 16:16. It says in the book of Devarim, all right, I like to keep everything in its Hebraic perspective, and a lot of times I might slip and go back to the name that's actually titled in the Bible, but it's called Devarim, which means words. 3 times a year shall all the males appear before the Most High, that power, in the place which he shall choose. That place that the Messiah chose, that the Most High chose, was Jerusalem. And 3 times a year must all males report to Jerusalem. Okay, that's the order. That's stated in the Ketubah. The Ketubah is the wedding contract. All right, that's the contract. Jerusalem is the place where the Messiah placed his name. 3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Most High, that power, in the place where he shall choose. In the feast of unleavened bread, okay, the feast of weeks, what they call Pentecost, and in the feast of tabernacle. And they should not appear unto the Father empty. Okay, so the place where the Messiah placed his name at is Jerusalem, not Mount Gerizim. That was the beef that caused the big major split, the reason why they didn't get along. The woman said that the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans because the Jews and the Samaritans differed in so many things. All right, it's very important that we understand that. I'm going to read it again. I'm going back now to Yochanan 4:20. Our fathers worship in this mountain, and you say that in Jerusalem is a place where men ought to worship? Yes, exactly. Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. The Messiah said unto her, Woman, believe me that the hour cometh when you shall neither in this mountain, which is Mount Gerizim, nor at Jerusalem worship the Father. Now, let's go back now to verse 20. Let's bring some clarity on this to see what's going on here. First Kings, I'm going to read, let's see now. I'm going to read the 12th chapter, and I'm going to read the 28th verse. But just give you a little history right quick. What's going on here now? There's a split between northern and southern kingdom. Jeroboam got the northern kingdom. Rehoboam got southern kingdom. Rehoboam wanted to go to war with Jeroboam to bring back the other 10 tribes back to the fold. But the Messiah put the spirit on Shemaiah, okay, to tell Rehoboam, don't fight against your brother. All right, I've caused this. Meaning this is that it's going to take the Messiah ultimately now to regather both northern and southern kingdom. All right, I'm going to say it again. The Messiah is going to reunify both northern and southern kingdom. All right, Rehoboam, don't go and fight against your brother. All right, let it be for now. And we see the Messiah now laying down the footwork in the book of John, the 4th chapter, explaining to us that there will be a reunification of northern and southern kingdom. Now, I'm going to read at 1 Kings 12:28. Whereupon the king took counsel, and this king is talking about Jeroboam. He took counsel and made 2 calves of gold. Okay, so this is this is another husband that northern kingdom is following outside of Ishtar. Okay, they're worshiping the golden calf. He made 2 calves of gold and said unto them, it is too much for you to go to Jerusalem. So Jeroboam knew that the place where the Messiah placed his name at was Jerusalem. But Jeroboam understood that if northern kingdom, okay, was to go to southern kingdom or go to Jerusalem 3 times a year to worship, eventually northern kingdom would cleave back to southern kingdom, and that would mean the death of Jeroboam. So Jeroboam, Jeroboam is a very, very wicked individual. He caused northern kingdom to sin. And now this woman here in John the 4th chapter is so arrogant where she's going to tell the Messiah that our fathers worship at Mount Gerizim. Who cares? The place where the Messiah placed his name at is in Jerusalem. I'm going to read on. Behold thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. So he's claiming the responsibility and giving all credit to these 2 calves and not to the Messiah, not to the Most High. And he set one in Bethel and the other he put in Dan. These 2 golden calves, he put one in Bethel and he put the other one in Dan. Now, remember these golden calves, okay, because this has a lot to do with astrology, because the Egyptians was following under the astrological sign of Taurus the bull. Okay, and I get into that a whole lot later on. Now, but again, and he set one in Bethel and he set the other calf in Dan. And this thing became a sin, but the people went to worship before one even into Dan. Now, what is sin? Sin is transgression of the law. And what happened was Jeroboam caused northern kingdom to transgress the law. And so what happened now, this became a custom. This worshiping at Mount Gerizim, at Bethel, and at Dan became a custom of northern kingdom's forefathers. We're talking about Jeroboam. But again, the place where the Messiah placed his name at was Jerusalem. The 30th verse. And this thing became a sin for the people, because the people went to worship before one even into Dan. And he made a house of high places, and made priests of the lowest of the people, which were not of the sons of Levi. So these priests that was set up, okay, in northern kingdom were not even of the Levitical priesthood. Jeroboam set up his friends, his associates, his homeboys to be these leaders. But we know that the priests are supposed to come from the Levitical priesthood. And what happened now was that northern kingdom wasn't respecting the priest that was in Jerusalem. And not that they should, because they was following the Mishnah or the Talmud. They was following the traditions of men and not following the Torah. I just wanted to make that clear. The religious leaders in Jerusalem, okay, were not following Torah. Now, but again, verse 32, and Jeroboam ordained a feast in the 8th month. But now, when we read the wedding contract, there's no feast in the 8th month. The feast, the last feast that we're talking about, or the main feast that we're talking about, is the 7th month. It's called the Sabbath month. And it's called Ethanim or Tishri. It's the 7th month. And we have the sighting of the new moon. That begins the beginning of the month. Then after that, we have the Day of Atonement. And then after that, we have the Feast of Tabernacles. That's done in the 7th month. But we have Jeroboam setting everything up in the 8th month. And Jeroboam ordained a feast in the 8th month of the 15th day of the month, likened to the feast that is in Judah, amongst southern kingdom. But southern kingdom held it in the correct month, which is the 7th month. And he offered upon the altar, so did he in Bethel, sacrifice unto the calves that he had made, and he had placed in Bethel the priests of the high places which he had made. So he offered upon the altar which he had made in Bethel the 15th day of the 8th month, even in the month which he had devised of his own heart. That's very important. Jeroboam was not following Torah. He caused northern kingdom to sin because he had devised this day or this month, all right, on his own recognizance. That's what he did. This man is not following Torah. That's why it clearly tells us in Deuteronomy 4:2 that we're not supposed to add or take away from any of the words of the Ketubah, the laws, statutes, and commandments, the Torah. But what this guy Jeroboam did is that he's adding things to the scriptures, and this is what's causing northern kingdom to sin. And what's happening now is that this is causing a bigger rift between northern and southern kingdom. All right, this should be so self-explanatory by now, where I shouldn't even really have to go on with the rest of the scriptures, but I'm going to do it. This caused a rift between northern and southern kingdom. Northern kingdom was following idolatry. It's very important that we understand that. I'm gonna read it again, 33rd verse. So he offered upon the altar which he had made in Bethel the 15th day of the 8th month, even in the month which he had devised of his own heart, and he ordained a feast unto the children of Israel, and he offered upon the altar and burnt incense. Was against Torah. He devised this thing of his own heart, and now we have this woman again in Yochanan, the 4th chapter, the 20th verse. She's now trying to prove that the place of worship is Mount Gerizim, when the place of worship is Jerusalem. We'll go back to John, the 4th chapter. John, the 4th chapter, Yochanan, the 4th chapter, read the 21st verse. The Messiah said unto her, which is the woman, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh, when ye shall neither in this mountain, nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. The mountain is talking about Mount Gerizim, and the other mountain is talking about Mount Moriah, Jerusalem, where the Messiah placed his name at. That's the place where we're supposed to do 3 times a year. All males are supposed to report to Jerusalem. The Messiah then says, you worship, you know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. So why is the Messiah saying this? You worship, you know not what? Because they're not following Torah. He says, you worship, you know not what? The reason why they don't know what they're worshiping is because they're not following Torah. All right? They have gone out of the way. That's the reason why the Messiah gave northern kingdom a bill of divorce. You worship, you know not what? For salvation, the gifts, the redemptive role of the Messiah is amongst Judah, southern kingdom. The Messiah came to southern kingdom first. It's the responsibility of southern kingdom, okay, to fish for northern kingdom. That's the reason why the Messiah said in Matthew the 4th chapter, listen, he found Peter and Andrew, and I will make you, and they were fishers, but I'm going to make you fishers of men. What men is the Messiah going to make Peter and Andrew fishers of? He's going to make them fishers of northern kingdom. And we have the Messiah here in John the 4th chapter laying down the legwork, showing us that he's fishing for both houses, northern and southern kingdom. I'm going to read it again. You worship, you know not what, because they're not following Torah. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. And it's true, salvation is of the Jews, but Caiaphas explained this to us in more detail. That it is expedient for one man to die, not for this nation, but for those people that are scattered abroad. And that's making a reference to northern kingdom. The Messiah came and died for both houses, both northern and southern kingdom. So these guys, they knew the scripture. All right, they really knew the scripture. Now, I'm going to read the 23rd verse. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. So what I'm going to have to do here is I'm going to stop. And the next verse that I'll be going to is verse 24 to help us get more clarity on the mystery woman at the well. Shalom.